In this world, right at this moment, stories of life and death are abundant. Most of us hold a simple picture of death. Consciousness vanishes. Everything ends. It is an intuitive image, but also one filled with coldness and quiet fear. But what if I told you there is another way of seeing? A path that has existed for thousands of years. That allows us to face death not with fear, but with understanding and compassion? This is not a fairy tale or an empty promise. This is a profound Buddhist perspective on the continuity of consciousness, showing us that consciousness is not a fixed thing, but a continuous flow that exists beyond death. Let's explore together, not what happens when we die, but a more fundamental question. What exactly is consciousness? Right at this very moment? 1. Consciousness, a river, not a light bulb. Most of us think of consciousness like a light from a light bulb. Our body is the bulb, and our awareness is the glow. When the bulb breaks, the light disappears, the story ends. But the Buddhist tradition proposes another image, a river. A river is not a fixed thing. It's a flow. It moves across changing landscapes, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, but the current continues. The death of the body, in this analogy, is not the end of the stream. It's a transformation of the terrain. The current shifts, but it does not vanish. This perspective isn't based on blind faith. It's rooted in direct observation, and it's supported by one of the most precise teachings of the Buddha. In the Mahatmasankhaya Sutta, the Buddha corrected a common misunderstanding. A monk named Sati believed that consciousness is a fixed entity that passes from one life to another. The Buddha responded decisively. Apart from a condition, there is no arising of consciousness. In other words, consciousness isn't something that exists on its own. It's an event that only arises when the necessary conditions are present. For example, visual consciousness arises when there is an eye, a visible object, and light. Auditory consciousness arises when there is an ear and a sound. Mental consciousness arises when there is a mind and a thought. In every case, consciousness is dependent, emerging from contact, not existing independently of it. This leads to a profound shift in how we see ourselves. If consciousness is a process, not a substance, then there is no fixed self or inner soul residing behind it. The I, who is aware right now, is not a solid identity, but a continuity of moments, each one arising and vanishing, linked by causality. In Buddhism, this unbroken succession is known as Sata Santana, the stream of mind. The concept of non-self, anatta, becomes clear. It doesn't deny experience. It reveals that what we call a self is merely a convenient label for a constantly moving process. And this changes the whole question. If consciousness is not a thing that exists but an activity that unfolds, then the idea of it being destroyed at death is misplaced. What ends is not an entity, but a set of conditions. When the body ceases to function, the riverbed collapses, but the current, shaped by other forces, may still continue. 2. Karma, the unseen momentum of the stream. If consciousness flows like a stream, a natural question arises. What makes it flow? A river does not move by itself. It is shaped by the land, pulled by gravity, and fed by countless drops of rain. Likewise, the stream of mind does not drift aimlessly. It flows with a certain direction, driven by something deep and unseen. In Buddhist thought, that unseen force is karma. Karma is one of the most misunderstood words in the modern world. Many people think of it as a cosmic system of reward and punishment, as if some divine judge is keeping score. But in its original meaning, karma is far more subtle and profound. It simply means intention. The Buddha made this clear in the Anguttara Nikaya, where he said, "It is intention. Monks, that I call karma." This is the essence of the law. Karma is not something added onto our lives from the outside. It is the natural echo of our own volitional acts. Every time we think, speak, or act with intention, we shape the stream of our mind. These intentions do not vanish. They are imprinted in the continuity of mental moments, like seeds falling into the soil of consciousness. The stream of consciousness carries this entire garden forward, moment by moment, life after life. 3. The transition process, from one life to the next. If consciousness flows like a stream and karma shapes its current, then a deeply personal question naturally arises. What happens when this body dies? How is the flow maintained? What links the final moment of one life to the first stirrings of another? The answer begins with the mind at the very edge of death. In that final moment, the mind is not still. It is stirred by a deep, powerful force, tanha, or craving. It is the thirst for becoming, the subtle pull toward continued existence. Like a magnet, this craving draws the stream of consciousness toward a new set of conditions, a new form of life. This leads to an ancient and profound question: if there is no permanent self, what is it that is reborn? The Buddhist tradition does not answer with a thing, but with a process. One of the most famous metaphors is the candle. If you use one candle to light another and then extinguish the first, is the second flame the same as the first? Not exactly, but is it entirely different? Also no. The second flame depends entirely on the first. There is no transfer of substance, but there is a continuity of cause and effect. This is how the transition of consciousness happens. The final moment of awareness in this life conditions the arising of the first moment in the next life. Nothing material or permanent passes across, but the process itself continues without a break. It is a transmission of conditions, not of a self. Therefore, death, in this light, is not an abrupt end. It is a moment of transition, a turning of the stream, where the accumulated energy of a life passes forward, just as one flame lights the next. 4. Continuity in the modern world. Evidence and meaning. The insights we've explored so far come from ancient contemplative traditions. But what do they mean for the modern mind? Shaped by skepticism and science? Modern science holds that consciousness is a function of the brain. When the brain stops, so does the mind. Yet, even the deepest thinkers in neuroscience point to the so-called hard problem of consciousness. Why does brain activity give rise to subjective experience at all? And in this space of mystery, certain phenomena begin to stand out, not as proof, but as open questions worth exploring. For example, near-death experiences, NDEs. Across cultures, people who have been declared clinically dead for brief periods often return with vivid accounts of awareness, even when brain function appears to be absent. Another area of research comes from Dr. Ian Stevenson, who documented over 2.500 cases of children who spontaneously reported memories of past lives. From a Buddhist perspective, these cases suggest the spontaneous continuation of a Sata Santana, stream of mind, moved not by faith, but by its own karmic momentum. This is not magic. It is not dogma. It is simply what happens when intention becomes refined, and when the mind is trained to carry compassion forward even beyond death. 5. The ultimate goal. Stepping out of the stream. We have seen that consciousness is not a fixed entity but a stream, shaped by karma and sustained by craving. But this leads us to a deeper question. If the stream never stops on its own, what is its purpose? In the Buddhist view, the continuation of consciousness is not a comfort. This ongoing flow of birth, aging, and death, known as samsara, is not something to celebrate but something to understand deeply. It is the condition of being caught in suffering again and again. The goal of the path is not to secure a better rebirth or to prolong the stream. The goal is to step out of the stream altogether, to bring an end to the cycle of reactivity, craving, and becoming. That end is called nibbana, nirvana. The word means to extinguish, like the gentle going out of a flame. But what is extinguished is not the self, for there is none to begin with. What ends are the fires of greed, hatred, and delusion. Nibbana is not annihilation, it is peace. It is the unconditioned, the deathless, amata, beyond the push and pull of samsara. This understanding also reshapes our relationship with death. When we see death not as a final eraser but as a moment of transition within a larger stream, fear softens. There is less panic about the end and more interest in the quality of the journey. The Buddha never asked us to simply believe. He encouraged us to look through practices like meditation, mindful awareness, and ethical living. We begin to witness the stream as it flows within us. We see how craving arises, how intentions take form, and how suffering is born. And we begin, little by little, to unhook from the current. The Dharma is not a theory. It is a mirror. And at the heart of its reflection is not the question, what happens after death, but what is happening right now? The stream continues, but it need not carry us blindly. We can wake up within it. We can touch something beyond it. And we can live not merely as passengers in the current, but as beings capable of liberation.